Battlefield 2 Modern Combat simply does not exist, except in the present tense instant of the mind, in the memory of the people who played it. The servers are all shut down now, but I happen to be one of the lucky people who did play it, and I want to bring the game back into the present tense by remembering it and sharing my stories with you. Online console gaming in 2005 was a very special time and place, and a great community that you could be a part of. This was before private chat, and certainly before party chat. You would just join a public game and chat to everyone in the room, constantly making new friends and enemies alike. EA and other companies were still figuring out how online gaming worked on console. Back then, online games were niche enough that there wasn't an army of kids with free access to their parents' wallets ready to be exploited. There was a crazy idea in 2005, a notion to make a game that people would want to play. The game should be fair, and the focus would be on the game itself, not what unlockables you would get for playing the game. The enjoyment of the game was your reward. It was a simpler time. People talk about rare games all the time. I've heard Conker's Bad Fur Day being mentioned as a rare Nintendo 64 game, but there are plenty of copies on eBay. It's not rare, it's just expensive. You can even play it on the Xbox One now using Rare Replay, or even emulate it on your PC. Very few games are genuinely lost and no longer playable, but Battlefield 2 Modern Combat is one of those few games. I am of course talking about the online mode and how the servers are now down, and if you don't know, the online mode is the only thing worth playing in the game. At the time of making this video, no matter which of the three versions you try and play online, you will be prompted with the same message: could not connect to the servers. Back in 2005, I played this game way too much, and if I could take it back I would play it even more. I now have 3 completely worthless copies of one of my favourite games. Battlefield 2 Modern Combat is a game that isn't there. I will start with a little history for those unfamiliar with the game. Battlefield 2 Modern Combat was one of the biggest online console games, initially launching on the original Xbox and PlayStation 2, then later ported on the Xbox 360. Not to be confused with Battlefield 2 on the PC, the console versions are completely different to the PC game, and to my knowledge they don't even share the same maps. Speaking of maps, the game had the biggest maps I've ever seen on a console at the time, and the most players I'd seen in a game. You could have 12 versus 12. That's 24 players with relatively no lag in 2005, which is more than I can say for some games nowadays. All games have some lag, but EA servers were dedicated to BF2MC, which made them pretty stable and impossible to hack, or at least there were no known instances of it happening. But EA's control of the servers ultimately led to the game's downfall when they decided to pull the plug on the servers, no longer supporting this great game and leaving it impossible to play today. The PlayStation 2 servers lasted for a little bit longer because they were hosted by GameSpy. They stayed up until 2014, and this is the only reason I'm able to show you footage now. Let's compare Battlefield 2 Modern Combat's availability to some of my other favourite first-person shooter games. Wolfenstein 3D, Perfect Dark, Half-Life, Duke Nukem 3D, Doom, Turok 1 and 2, Halo. Just like Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, all of these games are of course now completely unplayable. Except they're not. They can easily be played on the original hardware and even have remakes and ports now. Perfect Dark is now on Xbox One through backward compatibility, or if you buy Rare Replay. Doom was on Xbox Live Arcade and it got a full game reboot. Duke Nukem has seen many ports and has a 30th anniversary edition. Turok 1 and 2 were recently remastered by Night Dive on PC and console. Halo's got the Master Chief Collection. Half-Life got a fan-made remake with the blessing of Valve called Black Mesa. So if all of these other classic first-person shooter games can still be played, what's the problem? Why is Battlefield 2 different to other old games? This problem is unique to online games of a certain age compared to modern online games. And I don't just mean that the problem is that online games in general and communities die. That can happen to any game. What's different in the case of Battlefield 2 Modern Combat is there isn't even much footage of the game, unlike modern games that you would type into YouTube now. Take Fortnite for example. There are countless hours of Fortnite footage on YouTube and Twitch, and by the time I can get to the end of this sentence, the amount of footage will have increased. Back in 2005, very few people had capture cards. Also bear in mind that this was a console game. The old Dazzle capture cards required a PC or laptop powerful enough to capture footage. Few people would have had a PC capable of running a capture card and a console to play the game on. Most people back then either played games on console or played them on PC. And it wasn't until GameBattles.com required video proof of clan match wins that I started to notice more people recording and uploading footage to YouTube. This was around the time of Bad Company 1 and Bad Company 2. Battlefield 2 Modern Combat had in-game clan support and management. You didn't need to record footage, so most people didn't. But it's not just game footage that's lacking here. There are more articles posted online in 1 week about Fortnite than I can find all time for Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. And most of the articles I do find are purely factual. So there's no real sense in what the game was like to play from the player's point of view. Andy Warhol has been credited with saying, "Everyone will have their 5 minutes of fame." But he later revised it to, "In 5 minutes everyone will be famous." This has never been more true today, and it means that many more people are able to share their personal experiences of playing games like Fortnite, but because of its time, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat isn't preserved in this same way. We don't have very many first-hand accounts of what the game was like to play, and I hope to change that. But why should you care? It's just an old first-person shooter. So what if a dusty old game's no longer playable? There are much better online games available now, right? Who cares if we don't have much surviving information about what the game was like to play online? Well, first of all, it's just important that we preserve it, because if we don't, we can't learn from it. But for me personally, I haven't found an online game as balanced and as immersive as Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. But besides that, it was a no-nonsense game that you just don't find today. There were no unlockables, no pay-to-win weapons, no health regen, no care packages or calling in nukes, no iron sights. It was just run and gun gameplay. Whoever had the quickest reactions or the better accuracy won the gunfight. Or whoever had the best tactics, but certainly not whoever had the best unlockable weapons or perks. Oh, and the DLC maps were free. A few other things it had that modern games don't have is an in-game clan option with a great community of players. Because there were no private or group chats on the original Xbox, you got to know everyone in public matches. I find it really off-putting playing the Xbox 360 in silence, until I realised that everyone was in private chat, which is a big community killer. Another cool thing about the online mode that you just don't see anymore is the ability to choose the server to join via a server browser. Most games now have a matchmaking system that just throws you into a random room and map, and a random team. In Modern Combat, you could choose your team when you get into the match, and even change team during the match, which was great if a friend joined the server. Also, if someone on your team was doing something that you didn't like, you could boot them out with the vote to kick option. All of the best console first-person shooters at the time were built with the single player in mind, and the multiplayer was bolted on as an afterthought, or an added extra using the assets and maps from the single player campaign. But Battlefield 2 Modern Combat was the first console game I ever played that was created with the online multiplayer in mind, and the single player was an afterthought. The end result was a game so good it influenced the Call of Duty series to go modern. Think about it, Modern Combat, Modern Warfare, notice the similarities there? Can't be a coincidence. EA coined the phrase Battlefield moments, and there really were some great, unscripted and unbelievable things that happened playing this game. Capturing a last minute flag, sniping people out of a chopper, running out of ammo on your primary and switching to a pistol in a panic, rocketing someone across the map. All of those moments are now lost, and I have no way of replaying them. So instead of replaying this game, I'm going to try and preserve it. But how do you preserve an online experience? How do you preserve any experience? Let's take war for example. To preserve war, you could collect objects and documents from that time period, but you wouldn't truly preserve what it was like to live through a war. The only way you could do that would be to ask someone else who was there. While it's important to preserve objects, it's much more important to preserve the stories behind those objects. With this in mind, I'm going to tell my stories from Battlefield 2, starting with some lower videos where I go into a little bit of detail on what the game was like to play, what the different maps were like, what the different kits were like, and then I'm going to have some full-length videos from some clan matches that I recorded on the PlayStation 2, and I'll just narrate them. If there's anyone out there that played Battlefield and would like to maybe tell me some stories that they have or some memories that they have of the game, I think that'd be pretty cool, because it's important that I not only preserve my memories of it, but preserve some other players' memories. It's good to have different views and sources. And I just like to maybe chat to some old Battlefield players. I think that'd be fun. Maybe do some kind of podcast or something where we have a conversation. So, thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe for the next one so you don't miss it.